What if I told you that the most dangerous spiritual threat isn't obvious evil, but a direction you're drifting toward every single day without even realizing it? Jesus warned about this specific direction, and it's the primary gateway through which Archons, those parasitic entities feeding on human consciousness, infiltrate your energy field. Before we dive deep into this revelation, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because this information is being actively suppressed and you don't want to miss what's coming next on this channel. Let's start with something most people completely misunderstand. When Jesus talked about watching and staying awake, he wasn't just giving generic spiritual advice. He was warning about a specific energetic direction that creates vulnerability. Even in the Gnostic texts that didn't make it into the mainstream Bible, there's explicit discussion of Archons, and Jesus describes them as rulers of this material realm who feed on human ignorance and unconsciousness. The direction he warned against wasn't north, south, east, or west. It was downward and backward simultaneously, toward density, toward forgetfulness, toward what the ancients called the sleep of matter. Think about your daily life for a moment. How much time do you spend in a state of actual awareness versus autopilot? When you're scrolling mindlessly through social media, when you're lost in repetitive thoughts about the past or anxiety about the future, when you're numbing yourself with entertainment or substances, you're moving in that dangerous direction. You're sleeping while technically awake. And that's exactly when Archons slip through the cracks in your consciousness. They don't need you unconscious in your bed. They need you unconscious in your waking life. The term Archon comes from ancient Greek meaning ruler or authority. In Gnostic cosmology, Archons are inorganic beings that exist in a realm between pure spirit and dense matter. They can't create, they can only imitate and consume. They feed on what's called Loosh, which is essentially emotional energy, particularly the dense frequencies of fear, anger, shame, and despair. These entities don't have the divine spark that humans possess, so they're parasitically dependent on harvesting it from those who do, and their primary method of infiltration is through the direction of decreasing awareness. Here's where it gets really fascinating. Our modern neuroscience has actually discovered what they call the default mode network in your brain. This is the neural network that activates when you're not focused on the outside world, when you're daydreaming, ruminating, or lost in thought. Research shows that people with depression and anxiety have an overactive default mode network. They're literally stuck in a loop of self-referential thinking. From a spiritual perspective, this is the neurological gateway for archonic influence. When you're trapped in repetitive mental loops, you're moving in that downward direction Jesus warned about. The ancient mystery schools understood this completely. Egyptian initiates were taught to maintain what they called the witness consciousness, the part of you that observes your thoughts rather than being swept away by them. Buddhist meditation practices emphasize the same thing, staying present and aware rather than lost in mental formations. Even the Islamic tradition speaks of ghafla, heedlessness or forgetfulness of the divine, as the root of all spiritual disease. Every genuine spiritual tradition points to the same danger, the direction of unconsciousness. Let's talk about how this actually works on an energetic level. Your electromagnetic field, what some call the aura, has a specific coherence pattern when you're in a state of presence and awareness. Studies done at the HeartMath Institute show that heart rate variability, a measure of the heart's electromagnetic field, becomes highly coherent during states of genuine appreciation, compassion, and present moment awareness. Now, this coherent field acts as a natural protection against external interference. But when you drift into unconsciousness, into that sleeping direction, your field becomes incoherent, fragmented, full of holes, pores, and that's when archonic entities can attach. Think of it like your home's security system. When you're present and aware, all the doors are locked and the alarm is on. But when you slip into unconsciousness, you're essentially leaving the front door wide open with a sign that says, "Free energy, come on." These entities are opportunistic. They're not all powerful demons from horror movies. They're more like spiritual mosquitoes, always probing for an opening, for a moment when your awareness drops and your field becomes penetrable. One of the most powerful things Jesus said in the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas was, "Hey, if you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have will kill you." This is a direct reference to the divine spark, your inner awareness, your presence. When you maintain that inner light through conscious awareness, nothing can infiltrate you. But when you don't have it, when you've drifted into the sleeping direction, you become vulnerable to forces that literally drain your life force. Now let's get practical, because understanding the theory means nothing if you can't recognize when it's happening to you. How do you know when you've drifted into that dangerous direction? There are very specific signs. The first is emotional heaviness that seems to come out of nowhere. You're going about your day, and suddenly you feel this weight, and you're in this inexplicable sadness or anxiety that doesn't match your circumstances. That's often a sign that you've been unconscious for a period of time, and something has latched on during that gap in awareness. Another major sign is obsessive thinking that goes in loops. You find yourself thinking the same thoughts over and over, usually negative ones, and you can't seem to break the cycle no matter how hard you try. This is because the thought loop isn't entirely yours anymore. It's being fed and amplified by an external intelligence that benefits from keeping you in that low-frequency state. The Archons are essentially farming your emotional energy by keeping you trapped in repetitive negative patterns. Physical signs include unexplained fatigue, especially that feeling of being drained even after a full night's sleep. If you wake up more tired than when you went to bed, it's not just poor sleep quality. Something is feeding on your energy while you're in that unconscious state. Many people also report a feeling of being watched or a presence in the room, particularly during that twilight state between waking and sleeping. That's not your imagination. That's you becoming briefly sensitive to what's actually there when your normal filters drop. So how do you protect yourself? How do you stop moving in that direction Jesus warned about? The first and most important practice is cultivating moment-to-moment awareness. This doesn't mean you need to meditate for hours every day, though meditation certainly helps. It means bringing consciousness to your everyday activities. When you're washing dishes, actually feel the water and the soap. When you're walking, feel your feet touching the ground. When you're talking to someone, actually listen instead of planning what you'll say next. These simple acts of presence seal your energy field. The second practice is catching yourself in unconscious states and immediately shifting. Set random alarms on your phone throughout the day. When they go off, pause and ask yourself, was I present just now or was I lost in thought? Where did my awareness go? This might seem simplistic, but it's incredibly powerful. Just the act of noticing unconsciousness begins to dissolve it. You're training your awareness to stay online more consistently, which closes those gaps that Archons exploit. Third, you need to actively clear your energy field daily. This can be done through various methods. Some people use visualization, imagining a sphere of light expanding from their heart center and clearing out any attachments or debris in their field. Others use sound, whether it's chanting, singing bowls, or specific frequencies. Some use physical methods like cold showers, which shock the system into presence, or sage and other sacred plants that have been used for energetic cleansing for thousands of years. Find what works for you and do it consistently. Understanding the parasitic nature of Archons is crucial here. They're not inherently powerful. They only have the power you give them through your unconsciousness. It's like leaving your car running with the keys in it. The car isn't stolen because the thief is so skilled. It's stolen because you made it easy. Every moment you spend in genuine awareness in that upward direction toward consciousness, you're literally starving these entities. You're cutting off their food source. And just like any parasite, when the host becomes inhospitable, they move on to find easier prey. Let's address something important. Some people hear this information and become paranoid, constantly worried about archonic attack. That fear itself is the problem. Fear is a low-frequency emotion that actually attracts what you're afraid of. The goal isn't to live in fear of these entities. The goal is to understand the mechanics so you can make informed choices about where you direct your attention and energy. When you truly understand that presence is protection, there's actually a sense of empowerment rather than fear. There's also a deeper layer to this that we need to explore. The Archons don't just infiltrate individuals. They infiltrate collective consciousness through systems and structures that keep humanity in that sleeping direction. Think about how society is organized. You're encouraged to stay busy, distracted, entertained, medicated, anything to keep you from sitting still and becoming present. The education system trains you to memorize and regurgitate rather than think critically and question. The media keeps you in a constant state of fear and outrage. The economic system keeps you stressed and struggling. All of this serves to maintain collective unconsciousness. When Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you, he was pointing to the only place the Archons cannot reach. Your innermost awareness, that pure consciousness that exists before thought, is untouchable. It's sovereign. It's divine. The entire archonic agenda is to keep you distracted from discovering that inner kingdom, because once you find it and stabilize your awareness there, you're no longer controllable. You're no longer farmable. You become what the Gnostics called pneumatic, spirit-filled, awake, in a world of sleepers. This is why every totalitarian system throughout history has targeted contemplative practices and mystical knowledge. It's why the Gnostic texts were buried and banned. It's why indigenous shamanic traditions were violently suppressed. It's why meditation and inner work are subtly mocked in mainstream culture as impractical or self-indulgent. The archonic system knows that individuals who turn inward and cultivate awareness are threats to the entire structure of control. You can't manipulate someone who's awake. Here's something that might blow your mind. The direction Jesus warned about isn't just metaphorical or purely spiritual. It has a literal dimensional component. Modern physics talks about dimensions beyond our normal three-dimensional perception. Some researchers suggest that archons exist in what could be called the fourth dimension, a realm that intersects with ours but operates on different laws. When you lower your frequency through unconsciousness, you're literally descending toward that dimensional bandwidth where these entities reside. When you raise your frequency through awareness and presence, you ascend beyond their reach. This explains why spiritual practices across cultures emphasize raising your vibration. It's not just poetic language. It's describing an actual energetic shift that changes your dimensional resonance. When you're vibrating at the frequency of fear, shame, guilt, or unconsciousness, you're resonant with the archonic realm. When you shift to frequencies of love, joy, gratitude, and awareness, you're resonant with higher dimensional realities where archons simply cannot exist. They literally can't survive in that energetic environment. Let me give you a personal practice that combines everything we've discussed. It's called the Awareness Anchor Technique. Several times throughout your day, pause whatever you're doing and take 3 conscious breaths. On the first breath, notice your physical body and any sensations. On the second breath, notice your emotional state without judgment. On the third breath, notice the quality of your thoughts. Then ask yourself, am I present right now or was I drifting? Here, this 30-second practice creates what's called a pattern interrupt. It breaks the unconscious drift and reestablishes your presence, which immediately strengthens your energetic field. The reason this works is because archonic influence relies on your continued unconsciousness. These entities are like shadows that can only exist when you're not looking. The moment you shine the light of awareness, they dissolve. This is why spiritual awakening is often described as remembering rather than learning something new. You're not acquiring new power. You're simply stopping the unconscious bleeding of the power you already have. You're closing the leaks in your energy field that have been draining you for years or even lifetimes. We also need to talk about sleep itself because this is where the symbolism gets really interesting. Jesus didn't just warn about spiritual sleep. He talked about literal sleep and the importance of being watchful. During physical sleep, your conscious awareness withdraws from the body and your astral form becomes active. This is when you're most vulnerable to archonic interference because your normal waking defenses are down. This is why cultures worldwide have developed prayers, mantras, and protective practices specifically for the sleeping state. Before you go to sleep tonight, try this. Set a clear intention that your awareness will remain active even as your body rests. You can say something like, I maintain my conscious awareness throughout this sleep cycle. I am protected by the light of consciousness. My energy field is sealed and sovereign. This might sound like magical thinking, but intention is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Quantum physics shows that the observer affects the observed. Your conscious intention literally restructures your energy field and makes it far more difficult for unwanted entities to gain access. There's also the practice of lucid dreaming, which is essentially learning to wake up within the dream state. When you become conscious that you're dreaming while still in the dream, you're moving in the opposite direction from the one Jesus warned about. You're bringing light into darkness, awareness into unconsciousness. Advanced practitioners report that lucid dreaming dramatically reduces archonic interference because you're no longer an unconscious target. You're a conscious presence, even in the sleep state. Now I want to address the question that might be in your mind. If Archons are real and they've been influencing humanity for thousands of years, is there any hope? Can we actually break free from this influence? The answer is absolutely yes. And the very fact that you're watching this video right now is evidence that you're already moving in the right direction. Information like this is reaching more people than ever before. There's a collective awakening happening, and the old systems of control are becoming increasingly visible and therefore less effective. Here's the truth that the archonic system doesn't want you to know. They're not winning. Despite millennia of influence, they haven't been able to extinguish the divine spark in humanity. That inner light keeps emerging generation after generation. Every spiritual teacher, every mystic, every person who wakes up and chooses awareness over unconsciousness is proof that the archonic agenda has fundamental limits. They can influence, but they cannot ultimately control beings who possess genuine consciousness. Your awareness is literally more powerful than their entire structure. This is why the final and most important point is this. The direction Jesus warned against isn't something that happens to you. It's something you participate in through your choices. Every moment you choose presence over distraction, awareness over unconsciousness, you're moving in the direction of liberation. Every moment you choose to numb out, zone out, or check out, you're moving in the direction of infiltration. It really is that simple. The power has always been in your hands. The question is whether you'll use it. So let's bring this full circle to what this means for your immediate reality. Starting right now, today, you have the opportunity to make a different choice than you made yesterday. You can choose to be present during your morning coffee instead of scrolling through your phone. You can choose to really listen when someone speaks to you instead of planning your response. You can choose to notice when your mind starts spiraling into worry and gently bring it back to the present moment. These aren't small choices. They're revolutionary acts in a world designed to keep you unconscious. The beauty of what we've discussed is that you don't need special abilities or years of training to begin. You don't need to become a monk or retreat from the world. You just need to decide that your consciousness matters, that your energy matters, both that your presence matters, because it does. Every single conscious moment you create ripples outward. It affects not just your own field, but the collective field around you. When you're present and aware, you're literally raising the vibrational frequency of everyone around you. You're making it harder for unconsciousness to propagate in your immediate environment. Think about the people in your life right now, your family, your friends, your coworkers. Many of them are still moving in that downward direction. They're unconscious. They're being fed by archonic entities without even knowing it exists. And the most loving thing you can do is become so awake, so present, so filled with that divine light that it becomes contagious. Presence attracts presence. Awareness attracts awareness. So it is. When people are around someone who's truly awake, they feel it. They might not have words for it, but they sense the difference in your energy. You become a beacon. This is actually how the collective awakening happens. It's not through forcing people to believe certain things or converting them to a particular ideology. It's through individuals like you choosing to wake up and then simply being authentically present in the world. Your awakeness becomes an invitation to their awakeness. No preaching required, just genuine presence, just real consciousness showing up in a world full of sleepwalkers. That's contagious in the most beautiful way. Now here's something crucial that ties everything together. The archonic system relies on fragmentation. It keeps you fragmented from yourself, fragmented from others, fragmented from nature, fragmented from the divine. Every practice we've discussed works because it integrates you. Presence brings you back to wholeness. Awareness unifies your consciousness. Conscious breathing brings your mind and body into alignment. When you're whole and integrated, archonic influence has nowhere to grab hold. A unified field is impenetrable. This is why toxic relationships, negative environments, and chaotic situations drain you so much. They're fragmenting. They're pulling your consciousness in different directions, keeping you scattered and weak. Conversely, this is why spending time in nature with genuinely conscious people in beautiful spaces feels so nourishing. These environments support your integration. They call your consciousness into wholeness. You can feel the difference in your body. That feeling is real data. Trust it. Let's also talk about discernment, because now that you understand how consciousness works, you need to know who and what to trust. In your spiritual journey, you'll encounter many teachers, many systems, many philosophies. How do you know which ones are genuinely supporting your awakening and which ones are subtle traps designed to keep you in a particular box of consciousness? The answer is simple. Follow the fruits. Does this teaching make you more present or less present? Does it increase your capacity for awareness, or does it give you more beliefs to hold on to? Does it encourage you to look within, or does it keep you dependent on external authorities? Genuine spiritual teachings point you inward to your own direct experience of consciousness. They encourage questions and experimentation. They don't demand blind faith or obedience. They don't create dependency on a particular person or organization. Any teaching that does those things, regardless of how spiritual it sounds, is likely another form of control. The Archons work through systems as much as through individuals. They love organized religion, spiritual hierarchies, and dogmatic belief systems because those keep people's consciousness externalized and dependent. The most dangerous teachings are the ones that sound true but subtly undermine your capacity for direct awareness. A teaching that says only certain people can access the divine is dangerous. A teaching that says you must follow specific rituals or rules to stay safe is suspect. A teaching that creates an us versus them mentality, even spiritually, is archonic in nature. Genuine awakening dissolves these boundaries. It reveals that consciousness itself is the ground of being, equally accessible to all, not hoarded by special groups or protected by special practices. What you're developing through the practices we've discussed is something called gnosis in the traditional sense. Not intellectual knowledge, but direct knowing. You're learning to access consciousness directly, rather than through someone else's interpretation. This is revolutionary. This is threatening to every system that profits from your unconsciousness or your dependence. When you can access truth directly through your own awareness, no one can lie to you effectively. No system can control you completely. You become free. And freedom is what this is really about. The direction Jesus warned against is the direction of enslavement. It's the direction of giving your power away to external forces, whether they're entities, systems, or people. The opposite direction, the direction of consciousness and presence, is the direction of liberation. Every moment you choose awareness, you're choosing freedom. Every moment you choose presence, you're choosing sovereignty. These aren't luxury choices. They're survival choices in a world where the forces of unconsciousness are actively working against your awakening. Here's what I want you to know as we wrap up. You are far more powerful than you've been led to believe. The divine spark within you isn't a metaphor. It's real, it's active. It's waiting for you to remember it and activate it through presence. The moment you truly understand this, something shifts. Fear loses its grip. Manipulation becomes obvious. Unconsciousness feels unbearable. You can't unknow what you now know, and that's the point. Once you see the game, once you understand the direction you've been moving, you can't unsee it. Some of you watching this are just beginning your awakening journey. You might be feeling overwhelmed or uncertain about how to proceed. That's normal. Just start small. Start with the awareness anchor technique. Just 30 seconds several times a day. Notice when you're present and when you're not. That's enough. That simple practice will transform your life over time because consistency matters more than intensity. You don't need dramatic spiritual experiences. You just need steady, patient cultivation of presence. Others of you have been on this path for a while. You might be recognizing the archonic dynamics in places you hadn't seen them before. You might be understanding why certain practices have been so important to your spiritual work. Keep going. You're on the right path. Trust the unfolding of your awakening. Trust that as you become more present, you naturally attract information and experiences that support your further development. The universe responds to your intention to wake up. And some of you might be feeling a sense of urgency right now. You might be thinking, I need to wake up fast. Everyone around me is asleep. The world is in trouble. I need to do something big. Here's the paradox. The urgency itself can keep you unconscious. Real change happens through steady presence, not through frantic action. The most powerful thing you can do right now is commit to your own awakening, not because it's selfish, but because an awake person is infinitely more helpful to the world than a sleeping person running around in a panic. So as you leave this video and go about your day, carry this with you. You are consciousness itself having a human experience. That consciousness is your true nature. The archonic system relies on you for getting that. Every spiritual tradition points back to remembering your nature, and you begin remembering through presence, through noticing, through choosing awareness over unconsciousness moment by moment. It's simple but not easy because you're going against deeply ingrained patterns. But it's possible. It's your birthright. It's what you came here to do. Thank you for taking the time to explore these ideas with me. Your attention, your presence while watching this, and your willingness to question and investigate these concepts, all of this matters. You're part of the awakening. Every conscious being contributes to the shift in human consciousness. If this resonated with you, if you felt something true in these words, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. We're diving deeper into these topics regularly, exploring the hidden history, the suppressed knowledge, the practical wisdom that the archonic system doesn't want circulating. When you subscribe, you're choosing to stay connected to information that supports your awakening. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a friend who's been feeling inexplicably drained. Maybe it's a family member who's stuck in anxiety loops. Maybe it's someone you sense is ready to wake up but doesn't know how. Sharing this information is an act of service. You're offering someone a map, a framework for understanding their experience in a way that empowers them rather than pathologizes them. That's profound work. Most importantly, be patient and compassionate with yourself. You've been moving in the direction of unconsciousness for a long time. Habits of mind are deep. Patterns of attention are ingrained. It takes time to retrain your consciousness. There will be days when you forget and slip back into old patterns of distraction and unconsciousness. That's not failure. That's part of the process. The practice is simply noticing and beginning again, over and over, with kindness, with patience, with the understanding that every moment of presence, no matter how brief, is a victory. You've got this. Your consciousness is waking up. The direction is shifting from downward to upward, from sleeping to awake, from fragmented to whole. That shift is already happening within you. Trust it, nurture it, and watch as your entire reality begins to transform. Because when you change, everything around you changes. When you wake up, you begin to see the world differently. And a world seen by awake eyes is a world full of possibility, beauty, and divine presence. That world is waiting for you. That world is calling you, and you're already answering.